Welcome, nighttime traveler, to sleepy bedtime stories, your haven of stories and tales to help you sleep. This is the place where traditional tales come to life and accompany you on your journey to rest. But first, tell me where you're listening from tonight and what time it is where you are. I'd love to know if you're joining me from your bed, from a cozy sofa, or perhaps from some corner of the world where you can still feel the spirit of ancient tales. Please leave me a comment. Every message from you is like a fragment of a precious amphora. If you'd like to support this space of peace and relaxation, subscribe and share the channel so that more people can find their refuge here. And now, take a slow, deep breath, because tonight we're going to dive into another thrilling story.
The Still Lake Under the Moon. Chapter 1. When the water stopped moving, night falls over the valley like a cloak of dark velvet. The stars begin to twinkle high above, one by one, as if awakening from a 1,000-year slumber. The moon, round and silvery, rises slowly above the mountains that surround this place, forgotten by time. Its light bathes the waters of a lake which, according to the elders of the nearby village, holds a secret as ancient as the earth's own memory. This is the Still Lake, though that was not always its name. Long, long ago, when the first inhabitants of these lands arrived, guided by the flight of migratory birds, is greater than this mirror of water was simply called the Lake of Whispers, because the wind descending from the mountains made its waters murmur songs that seemed to come from another world. But something happened, something that forever transformed the nature of this place. The invisible camera of our story descends slowly, brushing the tops of the centuries-old pines that guard the shores. Their branches sway barely, with a hypnotic gentleness, whilst the shadows they cast dance upon the surface of the water. But there is something strange about that surface, something that an attentive observer would notice immediately. The water does not move. There are no waves. There are no ripples. Not even the slightest tremor disturbs its absolute stillness. It is as if time itself had stood still here, in this remote corner of the world, where the laws of nature seem to have been suspended by an invisible decree. We now delve into the memory of this place, traveling back in time, through decades, centuries, millennia. We return to an era when this valley was very different. It is the year 1273, when the nomadic tribes inhabiting these mountains still worshipped the spirits of water and wind. In those days, the lake was teeming with life. Its crystal clear waters were constantly churning, fed by streams that cascaded down from the snow-capped peaks. Silvery fish leapt at dusk, creating concentric circles that spread out until they faded away at the shores. The valley's inhabitants held ceremonies by its waters, They lit bonfires that were reflected on the rippling surface, creating a spectacle of light and shadow that seemed to connect heaven and earth. They believed the lake was the dwelling place of a benevolent spirit, an entity that protected the valley from droughts and famines. They offered it wild flowers, fresh fish, and songs passed down from generation to generation. But on an autumn night in the year 1273, something changed. The full moon shone high above, just as it shines now, so many centuries later. The elders of the tribe had gathered round the fire, as was their custom, to recount the stories of their ancestors. The children listened with wide-eyed wonder, whilst the sparks from the bonfire rose towards the starry sky like fiery messengers sent to the gods. One of the elders, a man named Amaru, who had lived through more than 80 full moons, was recounting the legend of the lake's origin. According to tradition, in ancient times, when the earth was still young and malleable, a star fell from the sky and buried itself in the valley. Is greater than, from its impact, pure, fresh water gushed forth, forming the lake. The spirit of the star, they said, still dwelled in its depths, observing the world from below, just as its sisters observed it from above. As Amaru spoke in a deep, measured voice, something extraordinary began to happen. First there was silence, the kind of silence you feel in your body before you hear it with your ears. The crickets stopped chirping. The wind stopped whispering through the branches. The owls stopped hooting. The whole valley seemed to hold its breath. Then, one of the children pointed towards the lake with a trembling finger. The adults turned, and what they saw left them paralyzed. The water, which moments before had been gently rippling in the night breeze, had ceased to move entirely. It had become so smooth, so perfectly still, that it looked like a slab of polished obsidian. The moon was reflected in it with supernatural clarity, as if there were two moons, one in the sky and another trapped beneath the surface. Amaru rose slowly, leaning on his carved wooden staff. His eyes, clouded by the years but still sharp, scrutinized the phenomenon with a mixture of wonder and fear. He knew all the legends, all the stories, all the omens passed down by his masters. But this was not in any of them. He walked towards the shore, followed by the rest of the tribe. When he reached the water's edge, he knelt down and held out his wrinkled hand towards the surface. He touched it with his fingertips, hoping to feel the familiar coolness of the water. But what he felt was different. Is greater than the water was still water. It flowed between his fingers as he dipped them in. But the moment he withdrew his hand, the surface became perfectly still again, without a single ripple, without a single expanding circle. It was as if the lake had forgotten how to behave. The following days were filled with unease in the valley. The fishermen discovered that the fish had vanished. The waterfowl no longer came to drink. The deer that used to approach at dawn kept their distance, watching from afar with their large eyes full of caution. The lake continued to provide fresh, cool water when drawn up in vessels, but its surface remained motionless, as if sealed by an invisible spell. Amaru spent many sleepless nights, sitting by the shore, observing the phenomenon in the moonlight. He began to notice subtle patterns. The stillness of the water seemed more pronounced during the full moon. And there was something else, something he could not identify at first, but which gradually became evident. The moon's reflection in the water did not move at the same pace as the real moon in the sky. It was as if the reflection had a will of its own, as if it were a separate entity. One night, whilst contemplating this anomaly, Amaru had a revelation is less than number. 2 is greater than. He remembered a story his own grandmother had told him when he was a child. A story so ancient that most considered it merely a bedtime tale. It spoke of a pact between heaven and earth, between the stars and the waters. According to that legend, every lake in the world was an eye through which the earth gazed at the sky, and every star was an eye through which the sky gazed at the earth. This exchange of glances was what maintained the balance of the cosmos. But the legend also warned of a time to come, a time when one of those eyes would cease to blink, and when that happened, it would be a sign that something was changing in the natural order of things. Amaru realized then that they were not witnessing a curse, but an event of cosmic significance. The lake had not become still on a whim or through dark magic. It had stopped because it was observing. It was paying attention to something the rest of the world could not see. This interpretation brought a measure of peace to the tribe, though it did not entirely dispel their unease. They continued to live by the lake, adapting to their new circumstances. They learned to fish in the tributary streams rather than in the lake itself. Is greater than, they developed new rituals, new songs, new ways of honoring the spirit of the water, which now remained in perpetual contemplation. The years passed. Decades turned into centuries. It is now the year 1547. The valley has changed. The ancient tribe of Maru has intermingled with other peoples, has adopted new customs, new beliefs. But the lake remains still, faithful to its strange stillness. The new generations grow up accepting this as normal, as part of the nature of the place. They no longer remember that the water once moved. a traveler arrives in the valley one spring afternoon. He is a wandering monk, a man who has dedicated his life to traveling the world in search of sacred places and inexplicable phenomena. He has heard rumors about the still lake, though he did not give them much credence. But curiosity has brought him here, to this remote valley where the mountains rise like sleeping giants and the air smells of pine and damp earth. When the monk sees the lake for the first time, he stops dead in his tracks. The afternoon sun bathes it in a golden light that makes the water glisten like molten metal. But what takes his breath away is not the beauty of the place, but the unnatural stillness of the surface. In all his years of traveling, across all the lakes, rivers and seas he has gazed upon, he has never seen anything like this. He approaches slowly, almost reverently. He leaves his staff and his bundle in the grass and kneels by the water. He reaches out his hand, unwittingly repeating Amaru's gesture from so many centuries ago. He touches the surface and experiences the same bewildering sensation. It is water. It behaves like water when disturbed. But the moment he withdraws his hand is less than number. One hash is greater than perfect calm returns instantly. The monk remains there for hours, observing, meditating. He watches as the sun sets and the moon rises. He watches the stars come alight one by one in the firmament. And he sees how they are all reflected in the lake with a clarity that seems impossible, as if the water were a portal to another heaven, a perfect mirror between two worlds. That night, the monk experiences something he will never forget. As he gazes at the moon's reflection on the still water, he has the distinct feeling that the reflection is looking back at him too. It is not his imagination, nor an optical illusion. It is a real presence, a consciousness emerging from the depths, observing him with the same intensity with which he observes it. He feels dizzy. He feels as though he is on the edge of an abyss, not of depth, but of understanding. He is on the verge of understanding something fundamental about the nature of reality, something that words cannot express. But just as he is about to cross that threshold of understanding, the moment passes. The sensation vanishes like dew in the morning sun. The monk remains in the valley for 3 days and 3 nights. He speaks with the inhabitants, listens to their stories, records their beliefs in a small book he always carries with him. He learns that they call the lake the eye that never sleeps, and that they have developed a rich mythology around it. Some believe it is a place of power where wishes whisper, "Ed to the water come true." Others think it is a gateway to another plane of existence. There are those who claim to have seen figures moving beneath the surface on nights of the new moon, though no one can confirm these visions. Before setting off, the monk writes in his diary, "I have found a place where the water has forgotten its ever-changing nature and embraced eternal stillness. I do not know if this is a miracle or a mystery, a blessing or an omen. I only know that I have touched something beyond my comprehension, and that the memory of this lake will stay with me until the end of my days. We now move further forward in time. It is the year 1892. The world has changed drastically. The age of science and reason is in full swing. Is greater than railways cross continents. Telegraphs transmit messages across oceans, and men of science seek rational explanations for all natural phenomena. A group of researchers arrives in the valley. They are geologists, physicists, chemists, men with precise instruments and minds trained in the scientific method. They have read the accounts of the wandering monk, now considered a historical document of some value, and wish to verify whether the phenomenon of the lake is real or merely poetic exaggeration. The leader of the group is a man named Heinrich Müller, a German scientist of impeccable reputation. When he sees the lake for the first time, his reaction is one of professional skepticism. There must be an explanation. Is less than, has hone number, is greater than, he tells his colleagues as he sets up his instruments. An unusual density of the water, perhaps, or underground currents creating surface stability, or even an optical illusion combined with the human tendency to exaggerate. For 2 weeks, the team carries out exhaustive measurements. They take water samples and analyze them. They measure the temperature, salinity, and density. They study the currents, the depth, the composition of the lake bed. They meticulously record every piece of data, hoping to find the key to explaining the phenomenon. The results are baffling. The water is completely normal. There is nothing in its chemical composition to explain its behavior. The depth is considerable, almost 200 meters at the center. But this is not unusual. There are no significant underground currents. There are no anomalous magnetic fields. There is nothing that science can identify as the cause of the surface's perfect stillness. Müller is frustrated. One night, unable to sleep, he leaves his tent and walks towards the lake shore. The moon is full, exactly as it was on that night in 1273 when it all began. He sits on a rock and watches the moon's reflection on the water. And then, to his amazement, something happens that defies all his scientific training. He sees something moving in the depths. It is not a fish, nor any known creature. It is something larger, more diffuse. It is as if the light itself were Taki, Nung shape beneath the water, creating patterns that resemble constellations. impossible geometries, symbols that seem to have meaning but which he cannot read. Mueller rubs his eyes, convinced he is suffering a hallucination caused by exhaustion. But when he looks again, the patterns are still there, clearer than before. And then he hears something, not with his ears, but with something deeper. It is as if the lake were communicating with him, not with words, but with sensations, with direct knowledge. What Mueller perceives at that moment is difficult to describe. It is the sensation that the lake is much more than it seems, that its stillness is not passivity but concentration, that it is fulfilling a function, a purpose that transcends human understanding. It is as if the lake were a finely tuned instrument, designed to capture something coming from far away, from high above, from the very fabric of the cosmos. The following morning, Mueller is pale and silent. He says nothing to his colleagues about what he experienced. In his official report, he writes that the phenomenon of the still lake has no known scientific explanation and recommends further investigation. But in his personal diary, which will be discovered decades after his death, he writes, "There are forces in the universe that our science cannot yet measure. There are purposes that our reason cannot yet comprehend. The lake has taught me humility. The years continue their inexorable march. We now come to the year 1968. The valley has remained relatively isolated from the turmoil of the modern world. There are no roads leading up here, only ancient paths known to the locals. The nearest village is a 2-day walk away through the mountains. A young anthropologist named Elena Vargas arrives in the valley as part of her doctoral research. She is studying the oral traditions of remote communities, how stories are transformed and endure across generations. She has heard of the still lake and the legends surrounding it, and believes it could be a fascinating case study. Elena is a pragmatic woman, educated in the rationalist tradition, but she also possesses a sensitivity that allows her to appreciate the beauty and mystery of the cultures she studies. When she arrives at the lake, the first thing she does is take photographs. She wants to document the phenomenon visually, to create a record she can show to her professors and colleagues. But there is something strange about the photographs. When she develops them in the makeshift darkroom she has set up in the small cottage she rents in the nearby village, she discovers something unsettling. Whilst the lake appears perfectly still to the naked eye, the photographs capture something different. There are patterns in the water that are not visible to the human eye. There are textures, subtle ripples that only the camera can detect. Intrigued, Elena begins to experiment with different shutter speeds, different films, different times of day and night. Gradually, she builds up an archive of images that reveal a hidden aspect of the lake. It is as if the water were vibrating at a frequency that lies just outside the range of normal human perception, but which the camera, with its mechanical eye, can capture. During the weeks she spends in the valley, Elena becomes increasingly absorbed in the mystery of the lake. She spends hours by the shore, observing, photographing, taking notes. She speaks with the oldest inhabitants, records their stories, maps how the legend of the lake has evolved over the centuries. One night, under the light of the full moon, he decides to conduct an experiment. He has read in ancient tales that the phenomenon is most pronounced on nights of the full moon. He sets up his camera on a tripod and begins taking long exposure photographs of the lake and its moonlit reflection. When he develops these images, he is left breathless. The photographs show something extraordinary. The moon's reflection on the water is not simply a reflection. It has depth and dimension, is greater than it is, as if there were a real space within the lake, a place where the moonlight gathers and takes shape. And in that space, there are structures, forms that resemble architecture, landscapes, a whole reality contained within the reflection. Elena sits on the floor of her dark room, with photographs scattered around her, trying to process what she is seeing. Her scientific mind struggles to find an explanation. Optical aberration, film defect, overexposure. But she knows, deep down, that it is none of those things. She has captured something real, something that exists in a dimension normally beyond our perception. That night he has a dream. He is standing by the lake under the full moon. The water, which is normally still, begins to move, but not like normal water. It moves as if it were liquid and solid at the same time, as if it were a substance that does not obey known physical laws. And from the depths a figure emerges. It is not human, nor animal, nor any creature she can name. It is pure light, pure geometry, pure presence. The figure does not speak, but Elena understands its message. The lake is a guardian. The lake is an observer. The lake is a point of contact between different orders of reality. Its stillness is not an anomaly, but a function. It is still because it is listening. It is still because it is translating. It is still because it is keeping open a channel of communication between worlds that normally never touch. Elena wakes up with tears on her cheeks, not knowing whether she is crying out of fear or joy. She knows she will never be able to include this in her dissertation. No one would believe her. The photographs would be dismissed as technical errors. The dream would be interpreted as a product of stress and isolation. She knows the truth. She has seen something that fundamentally changes her understanding of reality. Before leaving the valley, Elena pays one last visit to the lake. It is early morning, just before dawn. The light is soft and bluish, and the air is filled with the song of birds beginning their day. She kneels by the water, as so many before her have done over the centuries, and gently touches the surface with her fingertips. And in that moment, she feels something she will never forget. She feels the lake touching her back. Not physically, but on a deeper level. It is as if the lake recognizes her presence, her quest, her willingness to see beyond the obvious. It is a moment of pure connection, of mutual understanding between a human being and something vast and ancient that has existed long before there were humans to name it. The years continue to pass. We now arrive at the present day. The valley has been discovered by the modern world. There is a small hotel for tourists, a well-marked path leading to the lake, information boards explaining the geological anomaly in carefully neutral terms that do not commit anyone to definitive explanations. But something has changed recently. In recent months, forest rangers and local residents have noticed something new. The lake, which has remained perfectly still for over 700 years, has begun to show signs of movement. These are very subtle movements, almost imperceptible. A small ripple that appears and disappears, a tremor in the moon's reflection. Nothing dramatic, but after centuries of absolute stillness, any change is significant. Scientists have returned with their modern instruments. Satellites orbit above the valley, taking measurements. Drones fly over the water, capturing high-resolution images. Sensors are submerged into the depths, looking for changes in temperature, pressure, and chemical composition. But so far, no one can explain what is causing these small movements, or why they are happening now, after such a long time. The village elders have their own theory. They say the lake has finished its observation. It has seen what it needed to see. It has heard what it needed to hear. And now, slowly, it is beginning to awaken from its long contemplative trance. Some fear what this might mean. If the lake awakens fully, if it returns to how it was before the water stopped moving, what will become of the knowledge it has accumulated What will become of what it has been keeping in its depths all these centuries? Others await with anticipation. They believe the lake's awakening will bring positive changes to the valley, perhaps even to the whole world. Perhaps the lake has been preparing something, accumulating energy, wisdom, power, and when it finally moves freely once more, it will release all of that back into the world. Tonight, as on every night for the last 700 years, the moon rises over the mountains and is reflected in the waters of the lake. The surface remains largely still, but if one looks closely, one can see those tiny ripples, those slight tremors that suggest something is changing. An old man from the village is sitting on the shore, in the very spot where Amaru sat so many centuries ago. He is the great-great-grandson of Amaru's great-great-grandson, though he does not know it. There are no written records linking his lineage to those ancient times. But there is something in his genes, in his cellular memory, that recognizes this place, that understands its importance. He gazes at the lake with eyes that have seen many seasons, many changes. He has lived his whole life beside these still waters. He has known them as something constant, eternal, unchanging. And now, in the final years of his life, he is witnessing the beginning of a transformation. He is not afraid. He feels, rather, a deep sense of peace. It is as if he were witnessing the closing of a cycle that began long before his birth and will continue long after his death. He is part of something greater than himself, greater than any individual life. He is part of the history of the lake, which is part of the history of the valley, which is part of the history of the earth, which is part of the history of the cosmos. The moon continues its ascent. The stars shine ever brighter as the sky darkens, and in the depths of the still lake, something stirs, something ancient and patient, something that has been waiting for this moment for over 700 years. But that is a story for another time. For now, let the valley rest beneath the silvery moonlight. Let the lake keep its secrets a little longer. Let the water, almost still but not quite, continue its silent vigil. Because some stories are not meant to end quickly. Some stories unfold over centuries, in layers of meaning that accumulate like sediment at the bottom of a deep lake. And this is one of those stories. The wind whispers softly amongst the pines. The waters of the lake reflect the night sky with a clarity that seems supernatural. And somewhere, on that mysterious border between sleep and wakefulness, between the known and the unknown, the still lake continues its eternal task to observe, to listen, to wait. The night deepens. The shadows lengthen. And the world, without knowing it, draws a little closer to the moment when the water will move again, when secrets kept for centuries will finally come to light, when that which has been asleep will awaken. But for now, all is still. All is at peace. The lake rests beneath the moon, and the valley sleeps, lulled by the silence that can only be found in places where time itself seems to have paused to catch its breath. And so ends this first chapter of the story of the still lake. But it is only the beginning. For the real question is not why the water stopped moving. The real question is, what will happen when it starts moving again? And that answer, dear listener, has yet to be written. Rest now, whilst the moon continues its nightly journey. Close your eyes and let the images of the lake fill your mind. Is greater than imagine its still waters, its perfect surface, the eternal reflection of the sky. Let that stillness seep into your very being, calming your thoughts, relaxing your body. The still lake waits, as it has waited for centuries. And you, like all who have come before, are part of its history. Is greater than sleep well, knowing that there are mysteries in the world that transcend understanding, that there is beauty in the unknown, and that there is peace in the deep stillness. The Still Lake Under the Moon. Chapter 2. The reflection of the moon without ripples. The night spreads over the lake like a cloak of black velvet, and the moon, that eternal companion of the sleepless, rises with a patience known only to the stars. Its silvery light descends gently, almost reverently, upon the surface of the water, which remains still, so still that it resembles a mirror placed there by the gods in the midst of the forest. There is no wind tonight, not even the slightest breath of air to disturb the absolute calm that reigns in this place where time seems to have stood still long ago. Perhaps centuries, perhaps millennia. The moon's reflection on the lake is perfect, so clear that it is impossible to tell where the sky ends and the water begins. It is as if there were two moons, one above and one below, both suspended in a universe of silence. The stars are also doubled, tiny diamonds twinkling both above and below, creating a double cosmos, an infinite space where reality and its reflection merge into a single, indistinguishable truth. The elders of the nearby villages say, those whose wrinkles hold the memories of past generations, that this lake was not always like this. There was a time, they say, when its waters danced with the wind, when the waves kissed the shores gently and the fish leapt in the daylight, chasing insects fluttering on the surface. But that was before, long before the moon decided to stay. The story told by the warmth of the fireplaces, when the winter cold bites and the shadows lengthen, speaks of a distant age, when the world was younger and the boundaries between the human and the divine were more blurred. It is said that in the year 1247, when the forests surrounding the lake were even denser and deeper, a woman came to these shores, haunted by a sorrow so great that not even words could contain it. Her name has been lost to time, though some call her simply the Contemplator. She was young, they say, with eyes the color of dark honey and long hair that fell like a cascade of night over her shoulders. She had lost everything she loved in a war that was not her own. One of, though, endless wars that feudal lords waged for land and pride, whilst the common people suffered the consequences. Her village had been razed to the ground, her family lost amidst the flames and smoke, and she had walked for days, perhaps weeks, searching for a place where pain could not find her. She reached the lake at dusk on an autumn day, when the leaves on the trees were beginning to turn gold and crimson. It is said that she fell to her knees upon seeing the water, exhausted, hungry, but above all, shattered inside. And there, on that lonely shore, she wept. She wept with such intensity that her whole body trembled, with sobs that seemed to tear pieces from her soul and cast them into the wind. She wept until she had no more tears left, until her throat was as dry as the cracked earth of summer. When she finally looked up, exhausted but strangely at peace, she saw that the full moon had risen above the distant mountains. Its reflection floated on the lake with absolute serenity, untouched, perfect, oblivious to all the suffering in the world. And at that moment, according to legend, something changed within her. She looked at that moonlit reflection and understood something that words could never fully explain, a truth that is revealed only to those who have touched the bottom of their own abyss. She stayed there, gazing at the moon in the water, all night long. She did not move. She did not speak. She barely breathed. And the ache, as if it had sensed her presence and her pain, also remained still. Not a single wave, nor a ripple, nor the slightest movement disturbed its surface. It was as though the water had decided to remain silent out of respect, offering that broken woman the only comfort it could give: stillness, the peace of absolute immobility. When dawn broke, the first rays of the sun found the contemplator in exactly the same spot, her eyes still fixed on the water. But something had changed. Her face, previously contorted with pain, now showed a strange serenity, almost supernatural. She stood up slowly, as if waking from a very deep sleep, and walked into the forest without looking back. Some say she returned to civilization and lived for many more years, devoting herself to helping others who were suffering. Others claim he never left the forest, that he became part of it, that his spirit merged with the trees and stones. But what everyone agrees on is what happened next. From that night onwards, the lake never stirred again. Storms might rage above it. The fiercest winds might lash the region, but the surface of the water remained as smooth as polished glass. It was as though the promise of stillness that the lake had made to the contemplator had become eternal, a pact sealed between the water and human pain, between nature and suffering. The years passed, turning into decades, and the decades into centuries. The world changed around the lake. Empires rose and fell. Wars were waged and ended. Humanity advanced with its inventions and discoveries, but the lake remained unchanged, always still, always reflecting the moon when it appeared in the night sky. In the year 1583, a wandering monk named Friar Sebastian arrived at the lake during his travels through the region. He was a learned man who carried scrolls and ink with him, and who was in the habit of documenting everything he saw on his wanderings. When he saw the lake for the first time, he was so struck by its unnatural stillness that he decided to stay there for 3 full nights to observe it. In his writings, fragments of which are preserved in a monastery several days' journey from here, Friar Sebastian describes in astonished detail how the lake defied all the natural laws he knew. It is as if God had decided to create a piece of heaven and place it on earth. He wrote in his diary on the first night, "The reflection of the moon is so perfect that one might think there are 2 worlds, one above and one below, both equally real, both equally unattainable." On the second night, the monk decided to conduct an experiment. He picked up a small stone and threw it into the center of the lake, expecting to see the concentric ripples that should naturally form. But what happened left him speechless with amazement. Is greater than the stone fell into the water with a soft splash, but there were no ripples. None at all. The water swallowed the stone as if it were desert sand swallowing a raindrop, and the surface remained as smooth as before, the moon's reflection intact, unperturbed. Friar Sebastian threw more stones, then twigs. He even dared to put his own hand in the water and move it from side to side. He felt the cold water against his skin. He felt his fingers glide through the liquid. But when he withdrew his hand and looked, the surface was perfectly still, as if he had never touched it. "It is a miracle," he wrote that night, his handwriting trembling on the parchment. "Or a curse. I do not know which of the 2, but I know that this place is not natural. It does not belong entirely to our world." On the third night, Brother Sebastian decided to stay awake until dawn, praying and watching. And it was in the darkest hours, when the night is at its deepest and the silence most absolute, that he experienced something which would change his life forever. As he gazed at the moon's reflection on the water, he began to feel a strange sense of peace, as if all his fears, all his doubts, all the worries he carried on his shoulders simply dissolved into thin air. He felt light, almost as if he could float. And then, in that state of absolute serenity, he thought he saw something in the moon's reflection. Not in the real moon shining in the sky, but in its twin that dwelled in the water. He thought he saw a face, the face of a woman with sad yet serene eyes, looking up at him from the depths of the lake. It was not a threatening or terrifying face, but infinitely peaceful, like the face of someone who has finally found rest after a long journey. Friar Sebastian closed his eyes, convinced that it was a hallucination brought on by exhaustion. When he opened them again, the face had vanished, but the sense of peace remained. He remained there until the sun began to rise on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. And when he finally stood up to continue his journey, he felt transformed, as if the lake had lifted a weight from him that he hadn't even known he was carrying. In his final writings about the lake, the monk left a warning for future visitors. Whoever comes to this place seeking answers will find only silence. But in that silence, if the heart is prepared, they may find something more valuable than any answer, the peace of accepting what cannot be understood. The centuries continued their inexorable march. The lake remained there, motionless, eternal, whilst human generations followed one another like waves in an ocean of time. The nearby hamlets grew and became villages, and the villages eventually modernized, though they never lost their rural character or their connection to the old legends. In the year 1892, a scientific expedition arrived at the lake. They were 3 men from the capital, dressed in formal suits and carrying measuring instruments that, to the locals, seemed straight out of a book of magic. They had heard the stories about the still lake and had come to investigate the phenomenon using the methods of modern science. The leader of the expedition was a physics professor named Dr. Heinrich Wolff, a middle-aged man with round spectacles and a neatly trimmed beard. He had brought with him anemometers to measure the wind, thermometers for the water temperature, and all manner of devices whose purpose the villagers could only guess at. Dr. Wolff was a man of science, skeptical by nature, who did not believe in legends or superstitions. He was convinced that there was a rational explanation for the lake's behavior. For 2 weeks, Dr. Wolff's team camped by the lake and carried out exhaustive measurements. They discovered that the water was extraordinarily pure, with almost no sediment or impurities. The temperature was constant, neither too cold nor too warm, remaining exactly at 18 degrees Celsius both day and night, both at the surface and at depth. Chemical analyses revealed nothing unusual, just water, H2O in its purest form. But what baffled Dr. Wolf most was the total absence of currents. He took water samples using special dyes, hoping to see the movement patterns that normally exist in any body of water. But the dyes simply dispersed evenly, without forming patterns, without indicating any direction of flow. It was as if the lake's water was not only still on the surface, but motionless in every molecule, in every particle. One night, unable to sleep due to the frustration of being unable to explain what he was observing, Dr. Wolf left his tent and walked to the lake shore. The moon was full, just as it had been when the contemplator arrived at the site more than 600 years ago. The scientist sat down on the damp grass and simply gazed at the moon's reflection on the water. He had spent his entire adult life studying the laws of physics, the equations governing the motion of water, fluid dynamics, the forces acting on liquids. He knew the theory so well that he could recite the formulas in his sleep. But here, facing this lake, all his knowledge seemed useless. Nothing he had learned could explain what he was seeing. And then, in a moment of honesty with himself, Dr. Wolf admitted something he had never admitted before, that perhaps there were things in the universe that science could not yet explain. Not because they were impossible, but because they required a different kind of understanding, a way of seeing that went beyond equations and numbers. He stayed there all night, gazing at the moon's reflection, and, just like Friar Sebastian before him, he felt something inside him loosen, relax, surrender. He found no answers that night, but he found something he had long since lost in his ceaseless quest for knowledge, wonder. Simple, pure wonder at the mystery of the world. When the expedition set off 2 days later, Dr. Wolf carried with him pages and pages of data, precise measurements, detailed analyses. But in his personal diary, in an entry he never published or shared with anyone, he wrote, "I have spent my life trying to understand the world through reason. Today I learned that sometimes the deepest understanding comes from simply being present in the face of what we cannot explain." The story of the lake continued to accumulate layers with each generation that discovered it. During the First World War, a wounded soldier made his way to its shores, having deserted from the Eastern Front where he had witnessed horrors no human being should ever see. He spent 3 days by the lake, without eating, barely drinking any water, simply gazing at the moon's reflection night after night. When he finally left, he walked back to his home village and devoted the rest of his life to growing flowers, never speaking of the war never explaining what he had found by that lake that allowed him to carry on living. In the year 1958, a poet arrived at the lake after having lost her ability to write. She had suffered a personal tragedy that had dried up her creativity just as the sun dries up a stream in summer. She stayed by the water for a whole week, and every night she wrote in her notebook by the light of the moon. At first, the words would not come, but eventually they began to flow again, slowly but steadily, like water finding its way through the earth. He later published a collection of poems entitled Motionless Reflections, which became a classic of contemporary literature, though he never revealed the exact place that had inspired his work. The lake guards its secrets jealously. There are no signs indicating how to reach it, no tourist maps or marked trails. Only those who truly need it seem to find it, as if the lake itself chose whom to reveal its location to. The locals, who know exactly where it is, rarely speak of it to strangers. Not out of malice, but out of respect, out of an understanding that some places are sacred not because the gods have blessed them, but because they have absorbed so much human suffering and so much healing that they have become sacred in their own right. The night grows deeper now, if that is even possible. The stars shine more brightly, tiny points of light that have traveled for years, decades, centuries to reach this spot and reflect in the still waters of the lake. The moon continues its slow journey across the sky, and its twin in the water follows it perfectly, moving without disturbing the water, a miracle so subtle it could easily be overlooked. There is a large rock by the northern shore of the lake, a rock that has been there since time immemorial, smoothed by millennia of rain and wind. The locals call it the Contemplator's Rock, and it is the traditional spot where visitors to the lake sit to observe. The surface of the rock is smooth, worn down by countless people who have sat there over the centuries, each bringing their own sorrows, their own questions, their own quests. If one were to sit on that rock now, on this calm, clear night, and look out over the lake, one would see exactly the same thing that the contemplator saw over 700 years ago, the perfect reflection of the moon, so clear and defined that it seems more real than the moon itself. One would see the stars doubled, the sky reflected with such precision that it boggles the mind to try to understand where one ends and the other begins. And if one were to stay there long enough, still and silent, allowing the night to seep into one's bones, and let the silence fill one's ears until one's own heartbeat became deafening, perhaps one would begin to understand what all visitors to the lake eventually realize, that the stillness of the water is not an anomaly requiring explanation, but a lesson to be learned. The world is full of constant movement, of ceaseless change, of waves that spread endlessly. Our lives are storms of activity, plans and worries, fears and hopes that stir us within as the wind stirs the water. But here, on this forgotten lake in the middle of the forest, there is a point of perfect stillness, a place where the universe has decided, for reasons known only to itself, to halt all movement and simply be. Science may seek explanations in the chemical composition of the water, in the geology of the lake bed, in the region's weather patterns. It can measure and analyze, quantify and classify, and perhaps one day it will find an explanation that satisfies the rational mind. But that will not diminish the fundamental mystery, the silent miracle that this place exists, that it continues to exist, night after night, reflecting the moon without ripples. There are those who say that if one looks deep enough into the moon's reflection, if one truly looks, not with the eyes but with something deeper, one can see truths about oneself that normally remain hidden. They can see the parts of themselves that are constantly in motion, stirred by invisible currents of fear and desire. And they can also see the parts that, like the lake, have the potential to be completely still. An elderly man from the nearest village, a man who has lived for over 90 years and whose memory stretches further back than that of any other inhabitant of the region, recounts that he visited the lake for the first time when he was a 7-year-old boy. His grandfather took him there one night when the moon was full and said to him, "Look at the water. Son, look at it closely. What you see there is what the world could be if we learnt to stop fussing, if we learned to simply be still." The boy didn't understand the words at the time. Of course, he was too young, too full of the restless energy of youth. But the image of the lake stayed with him, etched into his memory as if it had been branded there. And throughout his long life, in moments of crisis or confusion, when the world seemed too chaotic to bear, he remembered the lake and its impossible stillness, and that gave him the strength to carry on. Now, so many decades later, the old man returns to the lake every full moon, whilst his legs still allow him to make the journey. He sits on the contemplator's rock and gazes at the water, and each time it is as though he is seeing the moon's reflection for the first time, with the same wonder and the same peace he felt as a child. Why doesn't the water move? The young people of the village sometimes ask him, is less than, has hone number is greater than, hoping that his accumulated wisdom will give them an answer. And he always replies the same: to ask why it doesn't move is to miss the point. The real question is, why can't we stop moving? The night creeps slowly by, with the infinite patience that only the night knows. The moon traces its arc across the sky, rising towards its zenith, and its reflection follows every movement with absolute precision. If there was someone watching from above, from the stars themselves, they would see the lake as a giant eye opened in the earth, an eye that gazes at the sky without blinking, without resting, eternal in its vigil. The trees surrounding the lake are ancient, some of them so old that they were there when the contemplator first arrived. Their roots sink deep into the earth, drinking from the groundwater that feeds the lake. They are silent witnesses to all the stories that have unfolded here, to all the people who have come seeking something they could not name, and who sometimes, only sometimes, found it. In the branches of these trees, the owls hunt in silence, their wings barely whispering in the air as they glide over the water in search of small rodents on the shore. The owls also seem to respect the stillness of the lake, flying over it but never touching its surface, as if they instinctively knew that this is not a place to be disturbed. Beneath the water, in depths that no one has managed to measure fully because sonar equipment is thrown off by the readings, there are fish swimming in slow, perpetual circles. They are ancient fish, species that have existed for so long that they have forgotten how to evolve. They move through the water without causing ripples on the surface, their bodies perfectly adapted to the stillness of the lake, gliding like ghosts through an underwater world as silent as the one above. There is a theory, never proven but widely accepted among local scholars of the lake, that the water here is denser than normal, not in chemical terms but in some more subtle sense, more metaphysical, as if the tears of the contemplator, mixed with the lake's original water, had altered its essential nature, adding weight, depth, meaning. The water remembers the pain that was poured into it, they say, and in response offered the only thing it could offer, the promise that at least here, in this place, nothing would ever be disturbed again. It is a romantic idea, perhaps too poetic to be true in the literal sense. But the deepest truths are often poetic rather than literal, operating in the realm of symbol and meaning rather than in the realm of facts and measurements. The moon reaches its highest point in the sky, directly above the lake, and for a moment the whole universe seems to be in perfect balance. The moon above, its reflection below, and between them, the thin line of the horizon separating sky from water, reality from reflection, though at this moment the distinction seems entirely arbitrary. If one could suspend all thought, all analysis, all the constant chatter of the mind that never rests, and simply exist in this moment, gazing at the moon's reflection without ripples, perhaps one would experience what the contemplator experienced on that autumn night so many centuries ago, the dissolution of the self into something greater, the realization that individual suffering, however terrible it may be, is but a tiny ripple in an infinite ocean of existence. But these are not ripples that disturb the surface of this lake, for this lake has chosen not to allow ripples. It has chosen to be a point of absolute stillness in a universe of constant motion. a reminder that peace is possible. A, that calm exists, that even amidst the most terrible chaos, there are places where the soul can rest. Night is now approaching its darkest hour, that hour just before dawn when the world seems to hold its breath, awaiting the arrival of a new day. The stars begin to fade slightly in the east, though the moon still shines brightly, refusing to relinquish its dominion over the night sky. The reflection on the lake remains perfect, unruffled, eternal, and as night slowly gives way to day, the lake guards its deepest secret, that secret which only those who truly look can begin to understand, that sometimes the answer is not to find an explanation, but to learn to live with the mystery, to accept that there are things in this world that are beyond our comprehension, and that this, far from being terrifying, can be deeply comforting. For if there are mysteries we cannot solve, if there are places where the normal laws of the world are suspended, then perhaps there is hope that we too may find peace where it ought not to be possible, healing where it ought not to exist, stillness amidst the storm of our own turbulent lives. The lake remains, as it has for centuries, reflecting the moon without a ripple, offering its silent gift to anyone who has the patience to sit and watch, to be still and listen to the deep silence that speaks louder than any words.
Release the tension in your forehead. Relax the muscles around your eyes. Let your arms rest completely, heavy and warm at either side of your body. Your breath now flows naturally, like gentle waves lapping at the shore and receding effortlessly. The stories you have heard tonight slowly fade away, becoming distant whispers that you no longer need to follow. If this journey through time has served you well, you can support this space by liking, subscribing, or sharing your thoughts in the comments. That way, more people seeking rest may find refuge here. And if you are still awake, there is another story waiting in silence, ready to guide you deeper into sleep. But for now, let the voices of the past fade gently away. Let the names, dates, and events melt into the mist of the night's oblivion. The story can wait until tomorrow. Close your eyes. Let go of everything. Rest deeply, and may you have sweet dreams.